Are you a self-storage owner or operator looking for service providers to help at your facility? Well, the Storage Business Owners Alliance, also known as the SBOA, has you covered. The SBOA is a premier online hub for connecting self-storage owners and operators to industry-leading products and service providers. We provide one-stop shopping for your business with exclusive offers to save time and money. At the SBOA, we believe by coming together, we help owners and operators grow revenue, gain purchasing power, reduce expenses, improve efficiencies, and increase profitability. We also offer many resources such as our conferences and self-storage unlock webinars to help self-storage owners and operators gain the knowledge needed to become more competitive in the industry. To become an SBOA member or to find out more information, please visit www.thesboa.com today. We can't wait for you to join the Alliance.
Good morning, self-storage industry, and welcome back to another episode of Self-Storage Unlocked, produced by the Storage Business Owners Alliance. My name is Jessica Johnson. I'm the Vice President of the SBOA, and we love doing these webinars for you to help educate the industry for newer owners and operators, or even seasoned owners and operators that are in this great industry of self-storage. So a few quick housekeeping items for anyone that's new. I see lots of you chatting in the comment section. That is where you will ask questions if you have questions for the speakers today. And we have a pretty amazing lineup today. So I highly encourage you ask those questions while we have the speakers live. And we do ask some poll questions throughout the event. We just want to get to know you better. So if you would take the time and answer those poll questions for us, we would greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to get us started and want to give a huge shout out and thanks to the National SSA, Citizen Self-Storage, and Remote Management Services, I think I'm saying all that right, for being here today and helping us with this webinar. So before we get started, we're going to play you a quick video from Remote Management Services. Our first speaker, Cindy Ashby. And Cindy, don't kill me. This company's kind of new, right? So it's Remote Management Solutions. I'm sorry, not services. But Cindy, tell me all about you and how long you've been in self-storage and what you're doing over at RMS.
Well, good morning, Jessica. First, thank you for having me. I try to only do these like once every blue moon. So it's only fitting that I'm here today.
It was. There was a blue moon I heard and saw.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've been around, it feels like forever, almost 30 years now in this amazing industry. And it just manages to keep me on my toes at all times. There's always something new to learn. And, you are definitely bringing it to the forefront. And the demand study is going to show everybody that you don't want to leave now. Stick around. It's just going to get better. So, and that really is the whole purpose for Remote Management Solutions. Is I've been all about finding solutions with dynamic storage solutions, and management definitely is needed as we enter this fifth generation of the evolution of self-storage. There's got to be newer ways to do things and do them remotely. So here we are.
Cool. Well, we love talking about tech and automation, and we'll get into some of that today. So thanks for being here with us today, Cindy. Next up, we have a quick video for you from Citizen Self-Storage. Okay, so from Citizen, we have Peter Speckenegel up next. Hey, Peter, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Give us the rundown on you, Peter, and what you're doing over at Citizen Storage.
I was just hanging out.
Not doing much, right?
No. So, well, I appreciate you having us on. Excited to talk about the demand study. I think this is probably one of the most hot topics in our industry right now, based off of coming out of the COVID bump and trying to figure out how to manage the properties in kind of a lower demand environment. And excited to talk about kind of all the data and the value that this report brings a lot of operators.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. Can't wait for us to dig into it. So thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. And last up, we have a quick message for you from the National Self-Storage Association. So we actually do have a real promo from the National Self-Storage Association, but when Tim comes up, if you guys could give him a shout out and a big happy birthday to Tim Dietz in the comment section, we would appreciate it. So stay tuned. We have a message actually from the National Self-Storage Association. All right, last up is Tim Dietz from the National Self-Storage Association. Happy birthday, Tim.
Thank you, Jessica. I thought we were going to skate on that one.
No, we
Talk
found
with-
out.
We'll talk with my counterpart in Texas on that. So anyways, we're already partying here in DC.
Awesome. Good to see. Well, if you could tell us all about you and what you do for the National Self-Storage Association, I would appreciate it. And so would the audience.
Sure. Well, first of all, the video production quality in this industry has really gone up in the 2 decades. So put you guys to work for us next week,
Yeah.
But very impressive. So yeah, National Self-Storage Association. I always say that, to summarize what we do, we try to do 3 things exceptionally well. And if we do those things good, then we're doing what we can for the collective good of the industry. So first of all, hosting the industry at fun, networking events that are educational. And of course, a week from today, we'll be doing that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Next week's the big week. And my apologies for doing this webinar today with all you have going on. So I really appreciate you being here with us today because I know you're busy.
Hours. Yeah. Not much going on here.
No, quiet over there, right?
But the other 2 items I'd point out is advocacy, and with the national footprint, we aim to represent and protect the industry, which it needs because we're seeing more threats than ever before, and so it's the appropriate role for the industry. And you asked a little bit about me. That, for those of you who don't know me, that was my background. I did the lobbying and government relations here for 11 years. And when I became CEO, I hired a couple of smarter people to do that for me, and they're doing a great job. And then the last element I'd point to is our research and data, which there are some things, that I think we're strong at in that area, such as what we're going to talk about today. And I do think there are organizations with some of the compelling variables and metrics from the for-profit side that they're just going to have more resources and do that better. But we're happy to talk about the consumers in our demand study and who rents self-storage. I think we should all know who we rent from, who rents from us, why they're renting, how they're renting. That's really what our demand study is all about and what we're talking about today. Yeah, and the nice thing about it is we've done 6 or 7, I think, going back to 2005. So we have nice benchmarks to talk about today.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to bring Cindy and Peter up, and I just want to show the audience, this is the demand study. I mean, look at this bad boy. It's like how many pages, Tim? 300 and some odd pages.
Yeah, that's a weapon. I recommend
the digital.
Yeah, I recommend the digital or the tool.
Yeah. And we'll talk about your different options, but if you're an owner or operator, that bad boy should be one of your Bibles that you utilize and use. So I'm going to bring up, Tim was gracious enough to put a deck together for us today, so we kind of have some visuals that we can go through. So let's dig into this, Tim. So you were giving us a little bit of background. As I think you said you've done about 6 of them now. Since the early 2000s, what made the SSA decide that this was something that was critical to bring to the industry as an asset and resource?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, we're in our infancy as an industry. So the association itself will celebrate its 50-year anniversary in 2 years, and of course, Public Storage came about 2 years before us. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary. And so the association has been really trying to keep pace with the maturity and the scale of the sector, which all of you who are involved in self-storage know has been pretty strong. And so I remember I was here in 2005 when my predecessor, Mike Scanlon, and the board wanted to create this. And they wanted to know more about who is renting in self-storage and why they're renting, things like how they're choosing where they rent and how they're paying, what they'll pay extra for. Those types of items we really didn't have much data on. And so, it's useful to have benchmarks every year to see the progress of the industry.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think the industry is feeling the impact of, pre-COVID numbers are coming back into play. But as you can see by this slide, demand still remains robust for us. But Tim, talk us through this slide a little bit.
Well, I mean, the slide is good news for your sector, right? Everybody knows that when it comes to the REITs, that there hasn't been a stronger class of real estate than self-storage over the last 20 years. And this backs that up. What we see here in terms of the number of households that are using self-storage is that not only has it kept pace with the growth in populations, which was 9% in 2005, 10% in 2007, but we're actually above 11% now, or we were last year. I think we still are pretty close to that in household engagement of self-storage, and so this gives us confidence, in realizing that self-storage really has a role in our economy, and it's recession resistant, and what this tells you is that really 1 out of every 10 or more households will rent self-storage this year. So I don't know about you, but I can make a business out of something that 10% of households use in America.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cindy and Peter, anything you have to say regarding looking at this and seeing that the demand is still there?
I'll jump in on that.
Sure.
Back in, I want to say it was 1996, I remember working with Dean Jernigan and asking him, where do you see this going? What's going to happen here? And he said, it's just going to continue to grow because we have only begun to educate the consumer on how they can utilize this. And I think the increasing demand or usage that we're seeing here is because of that education. And the hope that we have is that while there's 1 out of 10 now, someday that could be 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10. So we still have a tremendous market to penetrate and educate to use our services.
Agreed. Peter, anything you want to add?
No, I absolutely agree. I think once a consumer gets used to a product that they've never used before, the likelihood of using it again is a lot easier, and they know what to do, and they become more sophisticated in their choices on what they're choosing to store at. And I like that we're keeping pace and we're not outpacing. I think that's an important part of this. When you look at the different cycles within our industry, whether we're in a development cycle, or that slows down, and development we get into overbuilt market. But what I like, this graph is kind of showing us we're just keeping pace, which is really good. I'd love to see utilization go up on households, but we'll see. I think this bodes very well for our sector.
For sure. I'm going to move on. This one shocked me a little bit because we do see a huge shift over to, online, and it's still showing that the drive-by is the principal means of them finding self-storage. So Tim, talk to us about this one.
Well, self-storage remains a 1 to 3 mile business. So while the convenience of the technology has certainly penetrated the sector, people are still going to rent where it's most convenient. And they're probably going to be exposed to that business by driving by. So that's, I don't know that there's a lot of people who are terribly surprised by this because you're going to be near your work, or you're going to be near your home, mostly near your home. And the convenience and the brand, convenience is obviously the most important element for self-storage renters. But the brand is less important, we found out. It's really price and convenience for self-storage operators. But the self-storage operators do have to keep pace with the improvements to the sector, which we see an awful lot as well. So you're going to want to have the security and clean and all that kind of stuff. You need to have a contemporary facility as well as being close.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, so Cindy and Peter, as operators, knowing this, what would you do as an operator to make sure that you had, a nice aesthetically pleasing, good curb appeal property here to make sure that it is attracting that drive-by customer?
Well, I'll jump in. I think that's kind of a no-brainer that you have to have a great landscape product.
Mhm.
The question then becomes: is once it's great landscaping, is it maintained? Is it upkept? Do you have some operational controls checklist to make sure that these things are consistent throughout the year, and making sure you have the oversight to keep those standards very high. And I know, Tim, you mentioned something about brand being very low, kind of on the totem pole, and I think that's pretty accurate because before, when the industry first started, a lot of times where people are just trying to get to the front of a phone book by saying they're AAA storage or quadruple A storage, and then they change to maybe it's Grand Rapids self storage, and they're really trying to get kind of the local thing. And I'm now even seeing people brand their property like, I think it's storage near me, Grand Rapids or something like that. So they're trying to utilize different brands in different ways. And I think as the continued consolidation happens with our industry, brand may have a more impactful thing in the future.
For sure.
And it's just kind of like the hotel, right? Industry versus maybe I guess the definition of brand. I'm very fascinated with that is that, if you go to a Hyatt, you can pull that Hyatt brand off and put a Marriott brand on there, and you should expect the same thing. But the difference between a logo versus a brand is that, you can swap out that logo. But a brand is something that people will pay a lot more for, and the hotel industry has really figured that out by creating boutique hotels that are right up the street. It's the same bed, but they expect a lot more services, technology. I think maybe our industry is heading that way with some of the new technology, the access control, the alarms, all the stuff that as we get into the demand side, the future generations really is a priority for them, and trying to figure out how do you then market to those new generations coming up. How do we make sure we cater to everyone, not only just them, but where the industry is going. But the drive-by absolutely is, I think, critical. I think you can still compete even if you're kind of tucked a little bit back behind, like in a business park, if you know what you're doing on the digital side of it, website, pay-per-click, all that stuff. But yeah, I think drive-by is absolutely critical. Brand is, I think, going to have a more impact maybe in the future.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Cindy, anything you wanted to add?
I think Peter pretty well covered it, other than, sometimes we have to remember that while drive-by is number one, there are some markets out there where within that 3-mile radius, we've got 11, sometimes 15 different facilities that they get to drive by. And I can't help but to think that it isn't that drive-by that sparks where they start to look on their smartphone and then through their computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of leads into the segue of this next slide. So Tim, take us through this one. This is showing that online presence and mobile optimization is a critical piece for us.
Well, sure. But first I want to address what Cindy had said about Dean Jernigan, who's one of the fathers of the sector. And, Dean did encourage this study. And I do want to call out Dean and appreciate him for having been involved in really, he's so analytical, Dean Jernigan, that he still will go over this stuff for me. And if there's something, that's a little off, he'll get back to me with it. So it's like a committee unto himself for this study. So I love running this stuff by Dean. This really, again, there's 300 pages, and I just pulled some that are kind of 3,000 foot level. So while drive-by remains the single most important method of finding your self-storage, technology is gaining fast. And this slide in particular demonstrates the difference between consumers and how they search through technology and businesses. So of course, it makes sense that businesses are going to find more use out of desktop or laptop, their computers at the office, because that's how business still is done. But consumers, we live in our own little computers, which are called smartphones, but they're really little computers, right? So, this is an area that has grown. You'd see if you looked at the study. It's been a trend now for a long time, and it's not going away. So if you're not mobile optimized in your rental platforms, then you're missing out. It could be a differentiator.
For sure. Now, Cindy and Peter, when you're working with, owners and operators, is website one of like the hot topics that you've had with them, checking on their website, making sure it's a good user experience?
Definitely. When we try to find out survey from our customers, we're asking about their entire experience, not only looking for ways that we can improve, but looking for ways that maybe we are doing something right and we need a little encouragement ourselves. The importance of these websites allowing you to do everything, to rent, to pay, to schedule a vacate is critical. And just to show how important it is, the other day, I was desperate for a massage. So I go to my phone, I'm looking, and while there were some good ones with 5-star ratings, if you did not have the ability for me to book online, I moved on.
Okay.
And I think that's very true of many people. Once we're in there, we want to be able to get it done and go. So it isn't just the visibility of your website, the flow of it, but we can't forget the success messaging on the backside. Once they visited, how do we follow up from there? How do we let them know if they truly want to use that website and they don't want to talk to a person or walk into the store? Are we able to get them enough information that's clear and concise to allow them to move in on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely key that they are able to navigate the website fairly easily. You are catering to people who are like watching videos on maybe what they can fit in a unit. Maybe there's a description, making sure you're catering to visual learners versus people like just reading stuff. And also on the operator side, it's critical that we know where they're looking on the website. So we use heat mapping on all our websites, so we know exactly where their cursor is at, what they're trying to click on. And then we also track the online movements. So we know exactly from what page to what page in the process the abandonment rate is. And then what we try to do is figure out in that section, can we tweak something to minimize that abandonment rate? And also we capture the contact info up front. So if they do abandon, we have a way to follow up with them and find out why they left the page. And hopefully you're able to capture those rentals as well. But as far as searching, I look at your screen on your phone and the screen on your laptop as real estate. Very similar to making sure you got a great property on a high traffic thing where people can see you drive by. I think it's as important to take up as much real estate on that screen as possible. So we'll be, hopefully, if we're doing our job right, we'll be up in the paid search. We will be, 1 or 2 in that section. We'll be 1 or 2 on the Google My Business, and then we'll try to be 1 or 2 on the organic. And then there'll be some lead aggregators, hopefully below that help even more with our search. So I want to take up as much screen space as possible with ours, because the more that you do it, and having great reviews, having you're responding to the negative ones, you're responding to the positive ones, all play a big factor in getting that person to interact with you and possibly do business with you.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the abandonment rate and making sure that you have the proper workflows set up through your back end, right? Because it should be triggering someone within your organization that they did drop off. I get distracted all day long. I may have had intentions of renting, but I got a phone call and I had to exit and I forgot to go back. and then making sure that you are setting very clear and defined standards for follow-up with your team. I've heard as quick as, 5 minutes, and there's even statistics out there that show that if you follow up within like certain time frames, your likelihood of turning that into a conversion is much larger. So it's a critical piece. Again, making sure on the back end, all of that abandonment stuff through your property management system and websites are talking, they're linked, and they're working properly in case that happens. So
absolutely. And if you have, technology operational controls in place to verify that your managers are following up within that time period, maybe it's 5-10 minutes, sending alerts to you if they aren't doing that from an oversight standpoint to follow up with those managers, and then also making sure that they're not just going into that lead's account record and putting left voicemail, and on every lead is left voicemail. You have no certainty that they actually placed a call to them.
Mm-hmm.
We now have technology that can track the outbound calls, and make sure those are being placed before they can save it as a completed task. And it's not just phone calls too. And I think this is a critical piece when we're talking about websites, demand, all this stuff, that we are trying to communicate with the customer and do business with them the way they want to do business, not the way we want to do business. So if they want to reach out to us via text, email, phone call, chat, whatever that is, we want to be able to interact with them in those communication channels and effectively track it, manage it, and convert.
Yeah, and each property is going to be unique. Well, I think it will be heavily online, right? If you're tracking where those sources are coming from, you can utilize and make better business decisions on where you might put some added money behind, different programs to enhance that, a text messaging program, or, a better website if you don't like your current website, all of those things. So these are good indicators of drivers and triggers that you can pull within your facilities to perform better. And like Peter said, meet them where they're at, because there's tons of options. If you don't meet me where I'm at, I'm moving on. Like Cindy said, I can't rent online or book online, on to the next one. So I totally get that. Tim, anything you wanted?
And that's why I never get a chance to grab a drink with Cindy in Vegas. I don't have the book online button. Like I've been
there's a thing called Calendly, Peter.
I'll send you my Calendly link, Peter. We'll have you covered. I would like to say one more thing on that website, though, as we have seen the introduction of the chat bots on there and how those have evolved to assist our customers faster. And the more they're there, the more we're studying the questions that are asked that go into it, the better we're able to respond immediately. And I don't want to get my numbers messed up, but I also know that Extra Space quoted a tremendously large amount, almost $3 million in savings, just in time that it took their managers to communicate a gate code, to be able to look that up. But yet now a customer is able to hit the chat bot and get that. And I think the other piece that we have to make sure of with our website, because everything that Peter said is spot on, but we have to remember our needs on the backside. So are we giving out that gate code before we have a signed rental agreement? Can your website handle that? Is it able to take the payment, get them the e-sign lease, upload their government issued photo ID and get them in? So there's a lot that goes on the backside of that to make it work right.
Oh, for sure.
Can I just point out something important here that Cindy touched on, which is the importance of massages. And the trade show, the Self-Storage Association Fall Conference Trade Show next week are going to be massage chairs. And
oh, nice.
And masseuses with the chairs to go along with the dogs. So we want you to be relaxed, not be too stressed out hearing about the amazing products.
Listen, if I'm not at my booth, I'm sitting in a massage chair with a puppy. I promise you, that's going to be happening. Probably because fall trade show season has set in and we are about to be on the road. So I'm going to move on to our next slide. Stacy Maxwell says, Tim for the win. We appreciate you guys bringing us massage chairs, like all vendors do. We need massages too. So let's talk about this one. This one is a good one too. Like first impression. I mean, the first facility that they're calling, they're pretty much going with from this slide. So Tim, talk to us about this.
Well, first impressions in self-storage mean a lot. So we touched on that a little bit earlier on the drive-by, but this quantifies it a little bit more. So when only 26% of consumers are price shopping, then you better be doing a decent amount of strong impressions at the get-go. So that, and this has always been the case in this study. So we've noticed this every year.
Awesome. So, with that again, what are you doing to ensure that the first impression is a good impression? How are you training your staff? Cindy, Peter, do you want to talk about some things that you guys do to make sure your staff is trained up and giving that 5-star customer service?
I just spoke with somebody who also has been doing this now for almost 30 years. And I have to say our challenge today is the same as it was 30 years ago. And that is getting a manager to stand up and greet the customer properly. It really makes you want to go in and just take all the chairs out of the office because just to get them to stand up. But you're right. It's very, very important. So we keep that not only in front of them, not only is it a part of training, but it is something that we have to role play too consistently. And then how do we ensure that's happening? By having in-person mystery shops to make sure that they're touching all points. And, as Peter alluded to, and we all know, there's a lot of technology in the background to help us see what's going on the website, what's going on the telephones. Yes, we have cameras in the office, but trying to figure out how that person or why they walk away is, to me, one of the most difficult data points to get. They've walked into your office. They've taken the time to drive up, park, walk in. Why would they leave without renting? And learning that is not easy, for sure, without doing some mystery shopping.
Yeah, for sure.
I think this demand study is so great for operational decisions. I mean, this
Totally
validates kind of your process of making sure that every call that comes into your property is treated like gold. And I'll talk first on the technology side. We've launched our own internal call center, and we have specific AI abilities to route calls very smart and to be able to make sure that the sales calls are prioritized over customer service calls. We're able to put them in specific queues within our own agents who are experts at sales. And we really, really push relationship selling through our training programs. So making sure that every sales call is treated like gold, because if you don't answer, they're not going to leave a voicemail. And chances are, if you are answering them, according to the demand study, 58% of them will rent with you, which is absolutely incredible. Opportunity that you have, and it should not be wasted. So if you can filter out all the payment calls or all the, hey, what's my gate code calls, and route them to an automated system or have it on your website, that frees up your managers, whether they're managers answering the phone at a location or a remote call center that you run yourself, or maybe in a third-party call center. The goal is really to prioritize those calls, because it's going to make a big impact on your occupancy, especially in a slower demand market, which is what we're in right now. And just from an internal standpoint on sales training, if you guys want to hear more about this, please, don't party too hard on Thursday night, because I have a session on Friday morning at 8:00 where I'm talking at the national thing about this exact thing, on how important it is to treat that 58% really, really well. And we have a program that we call Call the Month, and it seems very simple on the just from what we're saying, but it's very in depth. And all our managers are required to pick their best call from the previous month on a sales call, submit it to their supervisor. That supervisor then listens to all the calls, picks the top 4, sends it back out to the team and say, hey, out of these top 4, which ones do you think are the best calls? And we have a criteria of, hey, this is how you evaluate a really good call if you're doing it exactly how we want. And then they're able to vote on it. And so then the person who wins gets that peer-to-peer recognition, which I think is extremely important within our organization versus just a superior or supervisor employee, they're being recognized by their fellow peers on, hey, that's a great call. They also every single month hear 4 great calls and are able to adapt some of those things from those calls, pull it out, include it in their sales process. And what it does, it just lifts every boat in the harbor to be better at what they're doing. And then on the back end, the district manager gets to hear what you think is the best call, which probably might not be. And so the lowest ones that are submitted then can be put back in training with your district trainer, or maybe you retrain them. But it's a great way to create a sales culture within your organization. You give them, hey, here's the bar through documentation. And these are the criteria in order to be considered. And then they are then graded and held to that account, not only by their supervisor, but by their peers. And instead of, I like leading with the carrot versus the stick. This is a great example of really encouraging and incentivizing. And the people who win get a gift card. And what we try to do with that gift card is not cash, but it's to a specific place. So they get an experience out of it versus, hey, here's just a Visa gift card for $50. Versus, hey, here's a $50 gift card to your favorite restaurant. Go and take your friends, or getting an experience out of it from winning versus, hey, just here's $50. So we really try to use the demand study to direct how we handle our operations from the technology side, sales side, training side, everything.
Yeah, and what you're creating good employee morale and environment and culture with leading by incentivizing versus by hitting with a stick and ruling. People just tend to react better to that. No one wants to come into an environment where they feel like they're going to be constantly reprimanded or micromanaged, right? You got to let your people champion their processes. So I'm going to move on to the next one. Tim, talk to us about how people like to pay us their rental fees.
Well, I mean, as you can see, technology, again, is changing the way we do business. And all you have to do is look at the center column here with the check and cash usage declining. And so I think, most of us appreciate that automatic credit card, we're basically in monthly leases, right? Month-to-month leases. So, you like it when your customers' payments are attached to a credit card. And of course, less of a human element involved. So, when we look at this, this is an example of the legislative support that the demand study offers for us. And that is, we've faced a couple of bills that would require operators to use cash and to accept cash. And so that's obviously an issue that's bigger than the Self-Storage Association. I mean, we have legislative issues going on in 32 states this year. So Joe Doherty, our chief legislative officer, and Daniel Bryant, who's our associate attorney, have been very busy, and more threats to the sector than we've experienced since COVID. And I don't know if I'd call this one a threat. It's maybe a little more of a nuisance. But, our position is that operators run their businesses, and if they want to accept marbles to do business, to rent from your space, they should be allowed to accept marbles. Not to mention that, maybe the operators who know their business better than anybody see a security concern of having cash on site, which there are obviously other solutions. If they want to give up the cash market, that should be up to the entrepreneur. And that's our opinion. But these bills are getting, they are getting some traction. But again, having the data to show how few operators actually want to pay with check or cash is helpful to us.
For sure. Cindy, Peter, anything on this one?
Data speaks for itself. I shared a story the other day that it was back in 2015 that I quit taking cash at locations. And unfortunately, it was because a manager was murdered, over $4,000. And so we have to look at the threat that exists to our team. If we're supposed to protect them, obviously we want to recognize them. We'd like them to stay a part of it. But cash handling has become more and more more of a threat, not just in life that way, but if you think about it, the germs, the diseases that are passed through cash, it's not good. Plus, then you have the time somewhere in the day where now a manager has to make a trip to the bank. And how many of us, Peter, I know you've done this, you've had managers that make that trip to the bank and they stop at the coffee shop and they pick up a little extra. They might get a haircut, might get their tires changed, anything under the guise of, I went to the bank. So if we want them in the offices providing literally 5-star customer service and paying attention to the phones and renting units, we have to stop sending them out of the office. So all of my locations, if there's a manager there, there's a check scanner on site that can deposit right there. If somebody comes in with cash, we do not have a problem telling them there's a 7-Eleven, there's a whatever right around the corner, bring us back a money order. We'll be happy to take that.
For sure.
So we haven't gotten to that point yet that Cindy has. We've also had experienced some negative issues with cash handling, just like you're saying, closing the office, losing rentals, possibly showing up at the door. We've kind of mitigated that with QR codes where they can scan it, rent online, and get a unit that way. We've seen some success with that. There are certain markets that we're in that are higher than 8% on our cash collections, and just from a operational standpoint, we don't want to alienate that type of consumer who wants to pay with cash. It does cause a lot of burdens, and my hope is that it will continue to decrease as a preferred method of payment, and credit card and check is down too, but a lot of businesses do checks. So it's just, I hope it continues to decrease. If we get it under probably 2.5% on collections, we probably then switch that location to no cash. But there's other markets where we feel that we typically do. And then the reason why we continue to take cash as well on the auction side of things is our fear is that somebody's going to pay with a credit card, get to the unit after they bought it, decides that their stuff that they just bought at auction isn't worth anything, and then they dispute the credit card charge, and then we don't get anything for it. And same thing with anyone who's over 30 days past due. We only take cash to make sure we have confirmed payment, that they can't write a cancel check or NSF check or dispute a charge after they then enter all their stuff out. So there's some reasons why we continue to do it, but again, my hope is that and I'll be watching every demand study that you put out, Tim, to hope that number just keeps on going down, that arrow. That's very hopefully an encouraging thing for operations. And
so Peter, what you're saying then is you're waiting for us to lead the charge, and you'll hop in once we find out the water's fine, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Jump in first. Let us know.
Awesome. All right. I love this next list. This is the top 10 list of what your tenants are willing to pay more for. Listen to what they're saying. Tim, take us through this one.
Well, first of all, I think pest control should be part of any property management. And so I'm not sure why this question was originally asked, but we leave it in there because it does demonstrate that people care about what they're storing. And, they would have paid extra if you weren't already using exterminators and so forth. They would pay extra. But, we've seen an uptick in a couple of important areas, security alarm at the unit level and anytime access. We're both up 10% since the last time we had asked these questions, which was 3 years before this. Mm-hmm. So, you can make out of that whatever you want, but technology continues to matter. We may be a bricks and mortar industry, but people want to feel safe. They want to think that they want to have confidence that they're storing with security, and the data backs that up. By the way, this is where you see that the brand really doesn't mean all that much to them. Or necessarily someone present at the facility. So they want to be able to get into their unit, but they don't care if you have somebody there.
Cindy, Peter, let's start with you, Peter. What's your take on this list? How would you as an operator, bring some of this into your organization?
Yeah, I think the pest control one is always a tough thing from a marketing standpoint, right? You don't want to put out there that we have pest control because we have tons of rats and mice and other things getting into the property, and you want to just do it but not advertise it. And some of these things are like, well, then how do you craft a message that it would be able to cater this, that people know that you have pest control, and maybe you are the price leader in that market, and and again, it's some of those training and the sales techniques where you're asking qualifying needs, and then you go into the build value section of your sales process where you're describing the features and benefits of your property to them, and then hopefully then you get to price so that they know why you're charging what you're charging. And the way you craft that build value section, it could be around one of the benefits, which is pest control, and making sure that the way you talk about it is not making it seem like you have a problem at that property, which a lot of properties don't, and it's more of a preventative measure, and it's not an issue. But we typically don't talk about it in past. But I think we're gonna start incorporating more of this into our sales process if we can test things out and see how people respond to it, because this is clear that it's the winner on this. Why do people, or what they would pay more for? And then the other two, the 10% increases, I think are pretty significant year-over-year increases, in my opinion. And I think this is kind of, again, doing business the way the consumer wants you to do business. And before, like generation 1 and 2 of these properties, people wouldn't put fences around the property, right? And then your competitor put a fence around the property, and you're like, oh, well, I guess I better do it to stay up with them. And then it's now our smart locks, the thing we have to, my competitor down the street with smart locks, so I have to do it, whether that's Janus, Da Vinci, PTI, all the different great vendors we have in our industry that have solutions for this. I think, trying to understand that demand, and 10% jump in those two categories are really important. Like the 24/7 thing, we typically never would do that, because why would somebody need to be on the property at 2 a.m.? But it seems like that is a big interest. And then how do you mitigate the risk of that? Is it you have cloud cameras in your system or in your property? Do they have motion alerts on it? What security measures do you have in place to cater to that demand or what they want, versus just saying, I don't care what our consumers are wanting or what their desire is year over year. We did it this way for so long, we're going to stick to it. And it's one of the biggest things I think kills operations, is saying, hey, we've done it this way forever. Why would we change?
Yes, Cindy, I'll ask this one quick to you from the audience. It's regarding what renters want. Do you see these preferences carry across to the reality of what inventory renters take from your facilities?
You say what inventory? I'm assuming you're asking how many units do they actually rent? And unfortunately, I think that question is kind of a catch-22, because how many of those features do we actually have? Mm-hmm. What I can tell you, CJ, is that I have truly found that everything that's on there that we're able to monetize, we are able to do so without any resistance. So to the point of the no-key locks, to, we're charging a tech fee on that. Would you like us to come in and spray your unit when you're on site? Open your unit up. We'll meet you. We will do additional pest control if you would like, for an additional charge. Same thing with your 24/7 access. Absolutely, we can provide that to you. There is there's an upcharge for that. And by the time you get done with all of those, we're getting another $20 a month. So sure. Yes. And to your point, Peter, on the locks, we're doing that right now with an RV place that is soon to open, and offering motion sensors for inside their RVs. Again, that's another step, and there is an additional charge for that.
For sure. We only have about 5 minutes. We might run a couple minutes over. Tim, could you take us quickly through the next few slides where we're talking about Gen Z and how Gen Z is coming into play here?
Well, sure. I remember when the question was, are the millennials going to store? And what we're finding is that not only have millennials migrated to storage, but there now are largest number of households using storage. So this talks about how many tenants actually have space to rent at home, and of course the greatest generation, probably been through downsizing quite a bit, and Gen X and Boomers. Boomers are happy to get the Gen Zers out of the house, right? But it did demonstrate to us how much the younger people are starting to store. And that's good news for the industry and for our future. But I think those of us with Gen Zers at home appreciate it because they haven't really left home.
Yeah.
They won't leave.
I was going to say, this boomer just gave all her stuff to the Gen Z grandkids and said, here, deal with it.
Yeah. So you don't have to store it. Tim, take us through this one a little bit, the household income by generation.
Well, I think, as Cindy said before, some of this data speaks for itself. Household income of renters, that is. I get frustrated when I hear of terms. I'm going to talk about this a little next week, but I get frustrated as a spokesman for the industry when I hear that self-storage operators are for hoarders, or we're just storing junk, or useless stuff. And those are negative connotations, and the PR for the sector is really a difficult ship to turn. Our reputation. Because our usefulness actually cuts across all generations and all areas of the economy, whether you're well off or you're in the lower end of household income, there's a use for storage among all of those segments of our society. So it's not just folks with small dwellings. Half of I didn't put a slide in on this, but we're still seeing that more than 50% of our tenants are in some sort of transition. Now we're getting more that are permanent. That's increasing, but everybody, regardless of their financial status and where they are, will need storage at some point. That's how we get 11% of the households in the country using self-storage.
For sure.
And I would just want to chime in there on
the
demand side of things, the time of transition where people are moving, or that's one of the main reasons why I love this industry, is because our product really does help out people going through probably the most stressful things that you've ever gone through in their life. Relocating, downsizing, death in the family, college. These are all things that our industry are able to provide a service to help be that calm within the storm for them. And it's interesting on the demand side of it. I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of Michigan, and part of the National Association of Realtors, and they've put out monthly stats. And one of the things I found really interesting is last month's July's numbers. Sales year over year are down 16% on homes, and then the median sale price actually is up 2%. And so you have people who are sitting on their homes who aren't doing the transition, they aren't moving. And I think that has affected our industry this year in a significant way. And also the work from home craze has kind of settled down. And there's some other factors or drivers that are kind of sucking the demand out of our industry this year. And I think things will stabilize hopefully next year, and maybe interest rates kind of stabilize in the next 12 to 24 months. And then we'll be kind of back at full swing. But, I think that part of our industry is absolutely incredible, that we are able to help those people who are going through those transitions, that are moving, that, moving trucks, friends, whatever it is, and I love being part of the industry as a result.
Yeah, that's a good point. Tim, take us through this last Gen Z slide, and then we'll talk about the data tool that you have, and then we're going to wrap it up today. But if you could briefly go through this one, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, we just wanted to do a little deeper dive into the emerging generation of Gen Z. And when I look at this, it just validates what most of us who have, brothers or sisters or children in their 20s, what we're seeing, because it looks like my daughter's friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it speaks a lot to the transitions and changes that our culture is undertaking. So majority of women, there's a lot of urban environment, more ethnically diverse, and prefer credit cards. So, the Gen Zers have grown up with phones, smartphones, right? So all of those variables you see show up in the data about Gen Z.
Definitely. And then here's just a quick one on the value features that the Gen Z is looking for, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the right, we haven't touched on how important you can make convenience of like elements ancillary elements to renting. Mm-hmm. So renting trucks is really important. Having the availability of trucks at your facility is critical to the rental experience, and the conveniences for the move in and move out, such as dollies and so forth. But we had already touched on the website and the unit level security. So
yeah, I love seeing that. Ancillary income is a great revenue line for sure. And then Tim, quickly take us. I showed that big, massive Bible book that I have, but yes, you can get a digital version of it, a PDF version, I believe. And then the SSA has this great data tool. Tim, tell us about this.
Well, you can purchase from the SSA either the study itself and leaf through it, or the online version. But this is a data tool that you can just go in and create the kind of charts that you want. So you can say, I want to find out about millennials. I want to find out how they're paying. I want to know where they're paying. I didn't show you the slide that demonstrated the areas of the country that we're seeing growth in self-storage engagement, but which basically is follow the sun, except for California, which I won't get into. But you can create your own charts with a pretty intuitive tool here, and that's one way that a lot of folks like to go, and they'll generate tables that you'd like. So if you're an investor, and if you're trying to sell to investors, or you're working on your operations, you're going to have different purposes, and this will help you to customize the data.
Yeah, definitely. And I love this tool. And then Tim, a quick question for you before we wrap up and do our closing. Allie is asking, to become a member of the SSA, do you have to be an owner or operator to do so?
No, we have a prospect member, and now our membership is really based on companies. So there's vendor membership, there's prospective members, there's small operators, there's some place for everybody with the Self Storage Association. We truly are Switzerland. We try to be here for whether you're a vendor or owner operator, just starting out as an employee, or been an owner operator for all of our 48 years. There's room under our roof for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so sorry that we went over a little bit today and kind of had to cut those last few slides short, but I'm glad we were able to join together and do this. I know that our members appreciate it, and there's a lot of good information out there. Tim, give us a quick promo of what's happening next week in Las Vegas, and Cindy and Peter, tell me if you're going to be there, and if so, where can I find you?
Well, I'll just say that our numbers look really strong. And I know there's discussion about softening, in rentals a bit, but we're not seeing the softening in engagement. So if you're involved in self-storage and you want to network with others who are involved in some segments of self-storage, obviously it's the place to be next week. And the reception Wednesday night is going to be a blast. The team has put together an amazing band with a Roaring 20s theme and some flappers who are going to be dancing for us. So I know Peter will look forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been waiting. I've been excited. I finally got my flapper outfit in the mail, so I'm ready to start dancing.
I got mine too, Peter. Peter's nice. My dance buddy.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it is the event to be at if you are a owner, operator, manager, whatever, an investor in the self-storage industry. We will be in Vegas live next week, Tuesday through Friday. There's tons of educational sessions, roundtables, networking events. Like Tim was saying, fun networking events. Please visit the Expo Hall. SBOA will be there. We're in booth number 663. I think Peter's group is there, and Cindy's going to be there meeting with people as well. So please don't avoid us. Don't just come take our tchotchkes, although I want you to take my tchotchkes so I don't have to bring them back home with me. But stop by and talk to us. We're here to help you. We don't bite. So hopefully everyone can attend next week. And if you can't, the good thing is the National SSA does 2 major events a year. And the next one will be in the springtime in DC. And highly encourage you to go to the SSA's website, which is selfstorage.org. We put the link in earlier. You can go right to the demand study and order it if you would like that for your business. I highly recommend. It's such a great tool for you to make better business decisions. And then join. If you're not a member, see all their upcoming events. They have a value and acquisitions course coming up, I think, in early November. That's a great course to attend. Ski workshop in January. The National SSA runs a ton of different level state SSAs, and we show all of their shows that are coming up as well. So if you can't make it to a national event, at least try to make it to your state event and get connected and network with fellow owners and operators and vendors out there like, Peter, Cindy, and I. So thank you all so much for taking the time. I don't know what crazy woman planned a webinar a couple days prior to the National SSA. I won't name any names, but I think I might know her. So we'll see you guys next week. Stay tuned.
No bad time.
Yeah, we love talking self-storage. I mean, I think I wake up in 3 a.m. thinking of self-storage. So welcome to all that are new in the industry. Again, thank you guys for being here. We have a quick video for you before you jump off, and we will be back in 2 weeks, I think on September 14th for our next self-storage unlock, talking about how you should apply customer analytics to your advantage. And then again, we'll see you guys next week live. If you're in Vegas, stay tuned for that last commercial we have for you.